Hello, my YouTube family. Are you guys looking to gain some serious muscle mass? Well, today I want to talk about my broad approach to nutrition and for putting on muscle mass. Now, I don't have any weird fad diet, no carnivore diet, no veganism, no vegetarianism, no paleo, nothing like that. These are just some straightforward principles I follow, and I would say most people would recommend as far as putting on muscle mass and trying to increase performance in the gym and strength performance overall. So, first we're going to start out with some of the mistakes I made when I was younger. When I first was getting to the gym, I was about 13 years old, and all I thought about was trying to get as much protein in as I could and trying to limit my carbs and limit my fats. And to be honest with you, I think for the first few years when I was really, I was almost afraid of sweets. I was almost afraid of, quote unquote, typical bad food because I thought that was going to interrupt my ability to put on muscle. And I was wrong. So we'll start the kind of the video off first talking about overall anabolic versus catabolic states. So catabolic means breaking down, anabolic means building up. If we're trying to put on muscle mass and fuel performance, we want to be in an anabolic state as much as possible. Okay, we want to be recovering and gaining mass as much as possible. There's a few things we can do to make sure that we're in this anabolic state as much as possible, which would be sleeping and food. All right, those two things fuel our building phase, right? Our actual building of our body. Training itself is not anabolic. It is the actual training would possibly be catabolic, right? We're breaking down the tissue, although we're giving the body stimulus to grow. The actual training would be, actually breaking down the tissue so then we can grow more later. So the amount of time we're spending in the gym is not nearly as important as the amount of time we're spending on recovery, okay? Now, does that mean that I can only train an hour or 45 minutes 4 times a week? No, okay? We still can go into the gym, act like beasts, and get a good stimulus. We can be in there training for a few hours, probably every day. I mean, depending on your level, right? That's also with a caveat, though, that you need to be able to recover from that training, right? If my sleep is shit and my food is shit, when I go and train and I'm training 5 hours and I come home and eat chicken and white rice and broccoli, that's not going to fuel my performance to recover. So I have this great stimulus from my training, but my ability to actually act upon that stimulus in an anabolic way to gain muscle is stunted because I'm not fueling my body properly. All right. So when we're thinking about muscular growth and building muscle, we have to think about overall how many calories are we putting in. We need to have a calorie surplus to be the most anabolic. The nice way you can kind of figure out, and the way I like to figure out my caloric surplus, there's a couple ways. One, you can go online and look at like an online BMR calculator. That's basal metabolic resting rate. So your BMR is the amount of calories you're going to burn at just rest. And if your goal was to lose weight, we would also use that similar number. So if I were to wake up and basically lay there all day and watch TV and do nothing, my body still is an engine that's still running, so it's still going to be burning calories. It's going to burn a lot of calories. Let's say for me, maybe it could be like 3,000 calories of me just based on my muscle mass and my previous activity that I typically have during the day. I could be burning about 3,000 calories just laying there. Then we have to take on it from not only that, we have to also account for the extra activity we're doing. Lifting alone doesn't burn a ton of calories, not like a cardio workout. But sometimes I do lifting in the morning and then cardio in the evening. So on days like that, I could be burning an extra 500 if I was just lifting to 1,000. And then on top of that would be another 1,000 to 1,500 of just of like the cardio, right? So now I have to think about my basal metabolic rate and then possibly the extra calories I'm burning during this activity. Now, like I said, you can go online to calculate your basal metabolic rate, but another way and probably a bit more accurate to you would be just go on like a MyFitnessPal or a Calorie Tracker, track all your food for a week. Don't change anything. Don't change the food you're eating. Don't change the drinks you're having. Don't change your activity. All you're doing is just tracking what you're currently doing. And then at the end of the week, average everything out. So if you're tracked for 7 days, take all the calories from those 7 days, divide by 7. That's your average calories. Same thing with the amount of carbs you have, the amount of protein you have, and the amount of fat you have. Look at that number of the average of the 7 days that you're not doing anything different. And that's going to probably be a nice baseline of where you're at, right? Because some days you could be eating, 3,000 calories, but then another day you're only having 1,500 calories, all right? So we have to make sure we average it out, and we're going to look at a week, right? If you're struggling to gain weight and your body mass has been about the same, let's find the average of where you're at right now. And then on top of that, we should probably add a 500 calorie increase in order to start gaining weight. Now, about a pound of body weight is around 3,500 calories, okay? So if I'm in a surplus of 3,500 calories a week, at the end of the week, I have a surplus of 3,500 calories, I'll probably put on a pound of body weight. Now, the opposite is true. If you're in a deficit and you have less than 3,500 calories, so you're subtracting 500 from all the activity, and then you subtract 500, and you're losing about 3,500 calories total in that week, you're probably going to be losing a pound, right? So calories is going to be king. Making sure you get enough calories if you're trying to bulk, if you're trying to put on muscle mass, making sure you get enough calories is going to be number one, okay? It doesn't matter whether it's coming from great sources or not so great sources. If it's at the end of the day and if you're serious about putting on weight and you're like, oh shit, I'm 1,000 calories short and I have to be in bed in an hour, I'm not going to necessarily sit down and eat a huge meal of beef and rice, right? I might just have to have some ice cream, something that's easy to put down and then go to bed. That's going to be better than not getting the calories in. Now that we got the calories sorted out, let's talk about protein, carbs, and fats, okay? Typically, when you're bulking and you're trying to put on muscle, you think protein, 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 protein. I would recommend, actually, I believe the recommendation for a strength athlete is to have 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So that's even less than what you've probably heard about 1 gram per pound per body weight. Now, if we're in a calorie surplus, if we're trying to put on mass and we need to prioritize protein, but we don't have to go crazy overboard with it. And I believe 1 gram per pound of body weight is a nice number. If you shoot for that and you hit a little lower, it's not going to be bad because the recommended dose is 0.8 grams, right? And if you go over it, all right, also not bad. As long as you're not having, any kidney disease or there's not something funky like that going on, obviously go consult a medical professional. As long as there's nothing funky like that, going above the recommended protein limit is not going to be detrimental at all. The thing is, though, it might not be the best for putting on mass, right? If we prioritize protein so much that we forget about getting enough carbs and fats in, then we have an issue there, okay? We want the protein in our body to be used for the amino acids to build muscle, okay? If we have a surplus of protein and our carbohydrates and fats are minimal, our body takes the extra amino acids and converts them into glucose to be used as energy. That's why carbohydrates are known as protein sparing, okay? Amino acid sparing. Meaning, if I have enough carbs in my system, right, that turn into glucose, that store in the muscle as glycogen, my body is going to prefer to use that with high intensity exercise, and if I have enough fat, to use that with low intensity exercise in order to fuel performance. And then that leaves the protein to do the job we want it to do, which is build muscle mass. Now, that was one mistake I did when I was younger, which was like I limited the amount of carbs and fats I had because I was afraid of getting fat, right? If we need to be putting on muscle mass, we need to be in an anabolic state. If we put on a couple lbs of body fat, that's fine. My recommendation, my focus is as long as my chest sticks out beyond my gut, I'm in good shape. If my gut sticks out beyond my chest, I'm not in good shape, all right? I don't care too much about a six-pack right now, although I have one. I store a lot of my fat on my back. But as long as I look good and look big, that's all that matters. All right? So focus on getting enough carbohydrates and fats into the diet. Now we're going to take a look back on those averages that you were doing when you were not changing anything, right? Look at where the protein is. Okay, we know the protein is about, I don't know, let's say 1 pound per 1 gram per pound of body weight, okay? So if I'm 250, I'm going to have about 250 grams of protein, at least. Maybe even slightly less. If I hit 230, 225, I don't care as long as I get my carbs and fats up enough, all right? Then, what I would recommend is that carbs could be anywhere between 2 to 3 times your body weight, or at least 50% of your macros. That's what I'm doing. This always depends on the person, okay? So you have to experiment with what you like best. But there's a lot of diets now that are like limiting the carbs, limiting carbs, limiting carbs. I want to be anabolic as fuck. I want to be putting on muscle, right? Carbohydrates are important to do that because they fuel performance and they prevent my protein from being used for other things other than putting on muscle, right? Or building my body. So having enough carbs is going to be very important. Actually, when I gained about 15, 20 pounds of weight over a course of a year when I moved out of my parents' house because I was finally able to kind of really start making my own food and meal prepping and everything like that. I gained 15, 20 pounds. I went from 230 to 250 in a year. And what did I prioritize? Carbohydrates. My protein levels probably didn't change much. And because I eat kind of not super fatty meats, but I eat fattier meats, my fat levels also didn't change much. I just focused on getting in carbs. And I put on some serious mass and my strength gains went through the roof just because I was prioritizing eating carbohydrates. So again, I would recommend between at least 40 to 50% of your macro split be carbohydrates, right? And then wherever that protein falls, right? So whatever the calorie split is, okay? So let's say your calorie split is 30,000 calories, right? You averaged everything out at the end of the week. You're roughly eating about 2,500 calories per week. So we increase it 500 calories. So our goal is 3,000 calories. 50% of that, so about 1,500 calories should be coming from a carbohydrate source. And then we look at the protein. Let's say you're, 150 pounds. So you're trying to at least get 150 grams of protein in. Convert that, times that by 4. That's 600 calories. So we throw in 600 calories. So that's 2,100. And then whatever percent left, we're just going to give that to fats. And as far as fats go, again, barring that you don't have any heart disease or anything like that, I would recommend getting enough saturated fat from high quality sources of beef, butter, whole milk, eggs, maybe, good animals, bacon, good animal sources. Don't overboard it on saturated fat, but saturated fat helps promote testosterone production. So we need enough of it. We're not just consuming just saturated fat, but at the same time, we're not just having chicken breasts and olive oil to replace our fats. I would recommend strongly to get enough, especially if you're younger and you're really just focused on putting on muscle mass. And then everything else comes from, good quality sources. Let's say, whatever mono and polyunsaturated fats, fill that in for the rest of the percentage. Okay. Now we kind of got our macro split down. At least this is what I would recommend doing for me. And it's up to you to kind of figure out what works. So you can take my recommendation. Again, I'm not a medical professional. You can take my recommendation, tweak things to find out what works for you. And you know what's going to be working if you're putting on mass, right? If you're putting on muscle mass, you feel good, everything checks out health-wise, then you know it's working. Let's now talk about food recommendations and things like that. I'm not going to tell you how to eat. I am telling you how to eat, but I'm not going to tell you what to eat. Okay? Some things feel better for some people. Other things don't feel better for other people. For instance, I hear these people talk about the carnivore diet or these very high protein, low fiber diets. Turns out I need a decent bit of fiber for everything to be running efficiently in my body. So does that mean I just eat vegetables all day? No, but I'm not going to steer away from getting fiber in my diet. Okay. We leave Lane Norton. He's a pretty good nutrition professional. He's a doctor. He's someone I would probably look up to a little bit more than anyone who's dieting down into or is trying to die on a steak of a fad diet. Okay, and I would try to get at least 80%. This is kind of if it fits your macros, but try to get 80% of your food at least from good, high quality sources. Okay, good proteins, simple foods that you're going to read the label and you're going to know exactly what it is in. Okay, what is in it, and the others, again, I would try to steer towards natural or organic or simpler foods. But if they need to come from sweet treats, again, that's better to eat 1,000 calories of ice cream and get past that calorie goal for putting on muscle mass. It's better to eat that 1,000 calories of ice cream, in my opinion, than not eat anything and possibly start to lose weight, right? Anyways, that's going to be my recommendation for nutrition. I know it's a rough outline. I'm not really telling you like eat this, eat this, eat this. I would say get most of your food from good whole food sources and prioritize getting the carbohydrates and fats in to start putting on muscle mass. And then again, look at your body. You can track your body percentage if you want, but what I would recommend is look at your weight and look at your physique in the mirror. And if your physique ever starts to look a little extra chubby, then maybe you start cutting it down. But also realize it's okay to put on a little bit of mass, all right? If you want to put on muscle mass, you can't be afraid of getting a little fluff on the outside, okay? And then you can't be afraid of getting a little fluff on the outside, all right? You're going to put on some mass and you can cut down later. But we're focused on anabolism and we're focused on getting fucking huge. So I hope you guys like this video. Let me know if you have any questions. Let's get it.